When looking at the top running backs in the 2022 NFL Draft, I have the following three on my board. I have Kenneth Walker out of Michigan State, Isaiah Spiller out of Texas A&M, and I have Breece Hall out of Iowa State. These three running backs should all be picked in roughly the same range. I can easily see all of them as second-round picks that will immediately help their NFL teams. Before we begin this breakdown though, if you can do me a huge favor and like and subscribe to my channel, I would greatly appreciate it. So to start this video, let's look at a general comparison of how these players performed at the Combine. On the screen, you should see a breakdown of their relative athletic scores. RAS is a metric used to compare these players at the same position. The higher the total score means the player is more athletic or more explosive. I'll talk more about Breece Hall and his ridiculous scores later on, but as you can see, there's a clear difference between Walker and Hall as compared to a player like Isaiah Spiller. Spiller did not test well at the Combine. He ran a 4.6 40-yard dash, and his other metrics were also relatively low. His film, however, showed a more dynamic athlete, which we'll also cover later on. While these tests aren't perfect because a player could have a bad day, it's a good general measure of athleticism. I guarantee you that the more analytical teams out there will factor this into their big boards. Outside of RAS, the other metric I like looking at is missed tackle rate. This is simply the number of tackles they broke on their attempts. Obviously, the higher you are, the more elusive player you were in college. Now, there are differences in scheme, so don't take this as an all-inclusive metric, but as you can see, all three running backs are near the top of this class. A 32 to 33% missed tackle rate is extremely good. So going back to the film, we'll start this by looking at Kenneth Walker. When I watch Walker, I see a player with a compact frame that has the ability to shift effortlessly between his gears. He can go from start to stop and back and forth with ease. He also has a second gear when he hits the open field. Walker is a patient runner. He presses well at the line of scrimmage. Michigan State featured a ton of zone concepts last season. They run a lot of outside zone, then they attempt to use a zone stretch in order to open to the backside with an inside zone later on. Walker is excellent in this scheme. His one-cut ability to hit the backside of a play is really good. If I was a team running a zone offense and think of your Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay teams, then Walker would be at the top of my list. He's going to be a really good zone running back. Now, not only will he be a good zone running back, what impressed me about Walker is that he has the versatility and the athleticism to play in any scheme. The way that Walker sets up his blocks is clear that he has a really good feel for runs. His vision is up there with the best in this entire class. His understanding of how to take advantage of creases in the defense will open him up, especially as he gets down the field. Now, in terms of running style, I think he's more elusive with good contact balance as opposed to being powerful. I think he's much better at jab step juking players than he is at overpowering them head on. That's not to say he's weak or anything like that. I just would say obviously he's not a Brandon Jacobs type of running back. Walker would rather juke them out of their shoes, and he's really good at doing that to gain extra yards. Overall, he doesn't have many weaknesses as a runner. I think he'll try too hard to cut backside at times, but really outside of that, there isn't that much else. In the pass game, this is a different story. This is the area of his game where he needs the most improvement. His route tree was limited in college. He mostly sat in flats or underneath, and he didn't really do that much for Michigan State. This was more of a scheme decision as he seemed perfectly fine at catching the ball with good hands. However, he lacks the experience of running a full route tree. On top of this, Walker wasn't a good pass blocker. Honestly, he's a liability at this point. He just seemed disinterested in this part of this game. With that being said though, the good obviously outweighs the bad, and overall, I have him as an early to mid-second round grade. Before we talk about Isaiah Spiller, I want to give a huge shout out to HelloFresh for sponsoring this week's video. HelloFresh is here to make eating better and easier. No grocery stores, no stressful meal planning, just everything you need to prepare a wholesome, delicious meal all delivered to your door. This week, my wife and I tried the pork and zucchini bibimbap. It was so incredibly good. The produce was fresh and had a ton of flavor, the meat was portioned perfectly for both to share, and the recipe was so easy to follow, it made the entire experience effortless. HelloFresh has more 5-star recipes than any other meal kit, and they even offer quick and easy recipes that can be finished in under 20 minutes. Now, not only was everything delicious, but what I love about HelloFresh is how their pre-portioned ingredients help you cut down on prep time and also help you waste less food. HelloFresh cuts down on your food waste by at least 25% compared to grocery shopping. If you go to HelloFresh.com and use my code SamGold16, you can get 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts. Again, go to HelloFresh.com and use my code SamGold16 to get 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts. So back to the breakdown, let's talk about Isaiah Spiller. Spiller is a very interesting running back. Anytime he touches the ball, you feel like something big can happen. He's a very patient runner, almost too patient at times. I feel like in the NFL, he'll need to pick up his pacing a bit just so that he can go north to south. What I liked about him as I went through his film was how competitive he plays. Spiller runs angry. He'll fight for extra yards, and he'll use his body in any means necessary to try to pick them up. He also has really good footwork and good contact balance, and he uses both to jump cut defenders. Spiller is definitely more quick than he is fast. His 4.6 40-yard dash was lower than I expected. But to be fair, I thought at best he would have been in the low to mid 4.5s anyways. He's not the type of running back who's going to burn defenses down the field. Unfortunately, this does cap his upside. Outside of short area quickness, the one thing that stands out to me about Spiller is that he's a very scheme versatile running back. You can put him in an inside zone running scheme, but he can also play gap, power, and counter. Out of the 3 running backs that I'm looking at in this video, Spiller probably has the most diverse skill set. I think he has good vision to see cutback lanes, and he uses that jump cut we talked about before in order to take advantage of them. Now, I did think he slowed down a bit as he went through some of his cuts, and once again, that speaks more to his overall explosiveness than anything. Now, from a skill standpoint, I mentioned his versatility. This extends to the passing game. He's the most accomplished pass catcher out of the 3 running backs. This is where he excels. His competitiveness to attack the ball out of the air is something that I really liked. He ran flats and out routes in college, but he also was used on wheels and angles. I feel like he's the type of running back that'll be a good plug-and-play asset at the next level. He's not the best at pass protection at this point, but he takes good angles and his effort was generally good. His technique will only improve. With all that being said though, I'm going to keep coming back to his upside. This is the one thing that worries me about him and how he'll fare in the NFL. I think he plays faster than his combine numbers, but I guarantee his limited upside will worry some teams. They'll push him down their boards. I currently have him as a late 2nd round pick, and out of these 3 running backs, he's the one that will most likely fall. I can easily see him falling to the 3rd or even the 4th round. It'll be very interesting to see where he ends up in the draft. Finally, the last player we'll talk about is Breece Hall. I alluded to this at the beginning of the breakdown, but Hall absolutely dominated the NFL Combine. He ran a 4.39 40-yard dash. Also, his vertical jump was 40 inches. Both these metrics showcase an elite athlete. His relative athletic score is up there with some of the best running backs in the NFL, and his numbers actually compare well to Saquon Barkley, who went 2nd overall. The interesting part about his testing, though, is that I truthfully didn't see this level of explosiveness from his film. I mean, sure, he could definitely slip some tackles, and he was always one of the better athletes on the field scoring long touchdowns, but nothing in his tape led me to believe he would test that well at the Combine. This actually made me really question his film. I actually went back to rewatch some of his games. Now, from a pure running back standpoint, there's a lot of positives when it comes to his film. First, Hall is a very patient runner. He'll sit behind a block and wait and see what lane will potentially be open. There is a Le'Veon Bell quality to his level of patience. He does a fantastic job of pressing the line of scrimmage, and when he hits the open field, he'll get right behind a blocker and allow them to secure their block before he makes his move. I mentioned that Isaiah Spiller was too patient, and I thought Breece Hall did a great job of straddling the line between patience and aggression. It was a really great quality to see. The second thing that I really like about Hall is that he doesn't lose speed when he makes his cuts. He's a fluid athlete just like his numbers show, and he does a great job of gaining ground on each of his consecutive moves. I like how he has a strong base to absorb contact, and he has the size and balance to break an arm tackle that he set up. The final thing I'll say about him is that I really liked how Iowa State used him in the passing game. Similar to Spiller, you'll see him down the sideline on wheel routes, and he brought in some ridiculous catches that really impressed me. I feel like he already has the 3-down versatility that we all crave, though I do think he'll need to give more effort in blocking. Similar to the other running backs, that's really the main negative I saw when it came to his film. Generally speaking, I think the main thing I noticed about Hall was that he was a much better runner after he made his way through the line of scrimmage. This in contrast to a running back that can break tackles in the backfield in order to gain positive yards and salvage a play. I didn't really see Hall do that very often. Unlike Spiller, for example, who did that more frequently in the competitive SEC, Hall was given wide open running lanes in the Big 12. I think Hall is fantastic at hitting the open field and making the first guy miss, but he'll need to prove he can be more consistent at winning behind the line of scrimmage. Something about him tells me that he'll be able to do this though. He has very good vision, and his pacing to set up plays is at the top of this class. Outside of backfield penetration, the other thing that worries me about him is the amount of wear and tear he took in college. He had 800 total touches over the past 3 years. That's on the high side as compared to the other running backs. For example, both Kenneth Walker and Isaiah Spiller only had about 600 or so each. Having roughly 150 to 200 more touches than those guys definitely adds up. It's not a red flag to say that you shouldn't draft him, but it does make me worry about his longevity for that reason. The good news is that Hall broke so many tackles and he had so many long touchdowns that I think this concern might be a bit overblown. For me personally, I gave Hall a mid-second round grade, and I can easily see him getting taken right at the start of day 2. To wrap up this video, these 3 running backs, Kenneth Walker, Isaiah Spiller, and Breece Hall, all offer unique skill sets. For me personally, I look for versatility, execution, and upside. For that reason, it comes down to preference on who I value in this draft. A running back that can step in any scheme and play on all 3 downs has more value than a player that only fits one scheme or can't be trusted in the passing game. However, that doesn't mean that a player with that latter skill set can't learn these traits. This is the clear case for a running back like Kenneth Walker to be the #1 running back in this class. He's such a good runner, but I wouldn't really use him in the pass game as a blocker just yet. I'm going to send him on routes as opposed to keeping him in the backfield. Outside of him though, I have Breece Hall at number 2 and I have Isaiah Spiller as my number 3. I gave all these running backs second round grades as they each offer a lot of value to their future teams. If you're a fan of fantasy football, you're going to get to know these guys all pretty quickly. Well, that's all I have for you in this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Later this week is the NFL draft, so after that I'll keep looking at some of the top players and how they fit in their new schemes. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel and keep a lookout for those. As always, if you want to support me directly via my Patreon account, use the link in the description box below. You can also follow me on Twitter at SamuelRGold.